Welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. My colleague Jen and I were really excited to be with you and share really our strategies around connecting with faculty engagement initiatives. Our hope is really that you would have maybe a few new ideas to bring back to your campus as a result of this, and we would love to engage with you. So we have a few maybe questions for you all and some opportunities to connect later on in the session. We thought we would start with just really quick agenda. So we want to just highlight like the work that we're doing here at Brown, um, some of our past work, and just a little bit more about ourselves. Next, we'll go into our faculty liaison program. This is really our cornerstone. This is really one of our key drivers of the academic support that we're providing for student athletes. Next, we'll go into this faculty head coaches collaboration. This is a group of about 10 faculty members, 10 head coaches that meet regularly, and I'll share more details about that. And then we'll close with kind of hot off the press is a new initiative that we had for this semester. It's a faculty and staff engagement strategy, and the work that we're doing there. So we're excited. We've got some good information to share about some recent initiatives and things that we're doing with those groups. Still coming through okay on your end, Jen? Everything's good?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so about the presenters, I figure I'll just take a moment to share about myself, and then I'll pass to my colleague Jen. So I'm originally from New Jersey. I went to school. I played 3 sports in high school. Went to undergrad and did my undergrad at Towson University in Towson, Maryland. I was fortunate to be a health science and education major. Started teaching and coaching immediately after graduating from Towson. I taught K through 12 for a number of years and had the fortunate opportunity to work at Johns Hopkins as a coach. After I left Maryland, my wife and I moved back to New Jersey. I started working at Rowan University. I worked at Rowan for really 12 years. I worked in a lot of different facets of the university. I started off coaching, worked in admissions, student affairs, student success. When I left Rowan, I was the assistant vice president for academic support programs. And then the West Coast came calling. I had a really fortunate opportunity to head west and join the Cameron Institute at Cal and as the assistant athletics director for leadership and personal development. Spent 2 years at Cal. And then this job opened up at Brown. So senior associate AD for compliance and student athlete development. Had a great experience. A little bit about our student athlete development team. We are a team of 3 going to build to 4. And some of our core really pillars in student athlete development, leadership development, career development, community engagement, DEI programming, and academic support. You'll hear from my colleague, Jen, who oversees our academic and career. And the focus on this one will be really in the academic space and the support we're providing through our engagement with our academic community. So I will pass it to Jen.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Welcome, everybody. I'm Jen Miller-McEachern. I'm the Associate Athletic Director for Student Athlete Development. As Sean said, my 2 core areas are academic support services and career development. I have been lucky enough to have been a part of all 3 divisions. I was a Division II student athlete on the women's gymnastics team at Springfield College in Massachusetts. I was a coach and a commissioner in Division III, and my one and only Division I stint has been here at Brown. So I graduated from Springfield with an elementary education degree, and then much later, after I had already gotten married, started a family, I went back to graduate school, and I got my master's in sports leadership through Northeastern University. I started out in compliance at Brown, and I've worn a lot of different hats through my time. But at Brown specifically, I started in compliance, and then the pandemic was really rough on everybody, but definitely compliance officers with rules changing weekly. As Sean was starting to build out the student athlete development unit, I really felt like transitioning into that unit and the positions that he created was really a good fit for me. And so I transitioned into that position, to my current position, 3 years ago. And honestly, the work that I have done over the past 3 years has been the most meaningful of my 20 plus year career in athletics. So that is me, and I figured that I would get us started, Sean, with the faculty liaison program. So, our Bear Liaison program has been around for 10 years and it's really grown within the last three as Sean built out the student athlete development unit. My focus was really going to be to build on this program. It had a really great foundation in place, and so we just are continuing to build on it. Essentially, what the program does is it infuses faculty, staff, and deans into the athletics environment, which sort of helps holistically support the undergraduate experience for our student athletes. And these are people that really want to be involved in athletics for a whole host of reasons. It could be that they have student athletes in their class. They employ student athletes within their department. They were student athletes in their time in undergraduate and graduate school. Their kids play a sport and they're really enthusiastic about, making sure that their kids see sports at, the highest level. Um, so really that's what it is. It's really just this infusion of the academic side of campus with the athletic side. And then moving on, so the core components of the program really starts with recruiting. And I took a really unique approach with recruiting. So the first month of being in my position, all I did was ask student athletes what classes I should sit in on. What were those professors that were really dynamic lecturers and which classes did they enjoy? And so for the first month, I was literally a student. I was sitting in classrooms. I was reaching out to professors to see if I could come and just observe their class. And then I also leaned on the core unit of Bear liaisons that currently or that had existed from the very beginning. And I just leaned on them to connect me with their colleagues so that I could learn more about like what courses they teach or what their unit is responsible for within the university. And from there, it was a lot of coffee chats and just snowballed from there. So once we have the faculty member or staff member commit to the program, we provide them with a guidebook, which basically outlines what the expectations are, the roles and responsibilities of the Bear liaison. And essentially, the expectations and the role is really going to be determined between the coach and the faculty mentor. Um, it really is a relationship that has to be managed. And so we want to make sure, particularly if we're adding multiple Bear liaisons to a program, that we get the sign off on that coach because the coach is going to have to manage that relationship. Um, and then, we provide touch points throughout the year with our different engagement activities. We get everybody all together in September with our welcome back breakfast. And then we do a big student athlete kickoff barbecue in September. So it's great to have all the students with coaches, staff, Bear liaisons, and everyone just sort of reconnecting after a long summer. We also do faculty engagement games that we work with our marketing and ticketing team on. And we recognize our Bear liaisons and we provide them with a VIP experience. Many of our coaches utilize their Bear liaisons for official visits or when they have recruiting events on campus. And then we sort of come full circle, inviting the Bear liaisons to the senior send-off, which is just a special, very informal gathering of staff, coaches, and Bear liaisons for the seniors during graduation week. Um, we pair liaisons with teams based on a number of things, and there's no formula or exact science. But I do take into consideration the preferences of the Bear liaison, if they're drawn to a certain sport or not. We match coaching personalities too, because, all coaches aren't created equal. Some are more intense than others. And I will say a plug for all of our coaches. They are all very awesome. Um, and also, what concentration or department areas are the Bear liaisons from? Is there an overwhelming amount of student athletes that are in that concentration? And then we also just, representation matters. We want to make sure our Bear liaisons have similar backgrounds of our student athletes. And I think that this comprehensive matching process really helps set the Bear liaisons up to serve as an accessible and a trusted resource for student athletes and coaches. So, why does this effort that we put into this program matter? And Sean, can you go to the next
Yeah.
slide? Perfect. So for student athletes, obviously, it just creates a stronger sense of belonging within the campus community. And that's just because we're expanding their network of resources and support systems outside of athletics. For faculty and staff, it sort of helps them understand the unique challenges that student athletes have over non-student athletes on campus. And then, we see it in real time. It really just creates these meaningful relationships between staff and student athletes. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of those relationships later on. And I can also see the culture shifting, right? Particularly in the last 3 years. I have seen some silos broken down between academics and athletics. And I think that that's a big piece of that was me just partnering with the academic support systems on campus. And it also encourages collaboration between departments. All the work that I do is funneled through our campus partners. And then it just builds trust. If we're providing an opportunity to help professors out to proctor exams on the road, there's just a certain level of trust that's there. And then, of course, it supports holistic student athlete development, which aligns with the NCAA priorities. So that is the faculty liaison program, and I'm going to turn it over to Sean to talk about the faculty and head coach collaboration.
Yeah, it sounds good. Thanks, Jen. And before I want to put an emphasis on a point Jen was making. I think it's really important. It's like this is really our key and signature program for faculty connection and collaboration. It's really one of our biggest, right, Jen? It's probably one of our biggest cornerstones for academic support for student athletes. So if you have a faculty liaison program on your campus, hopefully you picked up maybe something, an item or two, or a new idea to bring back to your campus. If you don't, this is a good opportunity to maybe take a look at what can you do. Jen talked about just going into classroom spaces and saying, hey, I'd love to sit in on a class, or hey, I've heard really great things from your student athletes. Like, what can you do to really start small? We have, is it 50 or so, Jen, I think now, Bear liaisons tied to our teams. Are we up to 50 or so?
Over
Over
50.
50. And
Yeah.
so think about, like, how do you get to a number 50? It's like just start small. Maybe think about starting with your student athletes and or really engage faculty and trying to build from there. Yeah. So the next program, so that was our first one, the faculty liaison, which we call the Bear Liaison Program. We wanted to highlight the second program, kind of a newer initiative. It's faculty and head coaches collaboration. This is, I just want to share, I'm going to share a few slides with you just to kind of pull this together. But the general purpose for this one is to create greater overall community amongst faculty staff, similar to the Bear Liaison Program, but to give space. This one is tied, and we have head coaches sitting in on these meetings. And so this really ties to a larger division-wide priority. One of our strategic priorities is really to build community. And so this is a really great way for our head coaches and some of our key prominent faculty that are super engaged to come together each month and talk about things that are important to each group, essentially. And so we learn from and recognize the importance of both academics and athletics. And then lastly, this idea of supporting the holistic development. So you heard a lot about that holistic development of student athletes and the support with our faculty liaisons program. This is kind of the same thing. So we talk about, I'll get into some of our discussions, but how our student athletes are showing up in classroom spaces, how they're leading, how we're preparing them for life after Brown, what are faculty observing. It's just a really nice touch point to build community and be together and discuss important issues. So this is, I want to share, I want to spend the bulk of my time about this one because this is probably less like programmatic and more of a collaboration. This is comprised of about 10 faculty and 10 head coaches. It fluctuates a bit as we lose a coach or two or something happens, or faculty too. We look each year to strategically, who do we want to bring into those spaces? We have monthly meetings and we alter our meeting spaces, which I think is a really key. I was tempted to like leave that part out, but I think this is a really important piece of like sometimes we meet in our athletic spaces and then other times we meet over on campus. So, we're searching, we're like, what building is it in and where do we need to go and all the things. So, which is really funny. It takes you back to your like first day of classes, but it is a really cool like opportunity for both parties to be involved, heavily invested. We also do where like someone's the note taker for each meeting and one meeting it'll be someone from athletics, the next meeting it'll be someone one of our faculty members. And so so that's a little bit about the structure. I wanted to share with you like some of our meeting agendas. One of the things we do, and I think this is really important. At our first meeting each year, which is going to be in September, we come together and we discuss like what are some of the topics that we want to include? What are some of the things we're thinking about going into the year that really helps us frame each one of those meetings? We talk about potential guest speakers. Who do we potentially want to bring into this space? Who can we learn from? Who haven't we connected with in a while? And that really helps with the framing. The other one is where are we with our overall like who's involved in this, and then who do we maybe want to include, who makes sense on the faculty end, who makes sense on the head coaches end. This has been a really nice touch point for some of our new coaches to get them onto this faculty and head coaches group and connecting with faculty in this way and learning from each other. And so I think that's been a really cool part of the program is being able to involve some of our newer head coaches. The student athlete experience, you see the second bullet there. We talk about everything from everything really that touches the student athlete experience. So orientation, advising, schedules, graduation, anything that really is involved in that. Observations. This was a cool thing that we did last year. So one of the things when we came together in that first session, we said, hey, it would be really great if head coaches were to get into classroom spaces and observe. And then if we got our faculty into practice spaces to observe and just pick up on things, right? And so we didn't just end there. The next time that we met, we then shared our observations. We shared, hey, this is what I was observing. It was really cool when coaches were doing this, or hey, I noticed you do this in the classroom. The other piece to those observations was we shared what are some of the similarities between putting together a practice plan and a lesson plan? How do you grade? How do you evaluate? What goes into your prep? And so it was a really robust conversation around everything that goes into coaching and teaching. Guest speakers, I shared a little bit about that. We'll have like who on campus do we want to hear from? Advising, student support services, CAPS, et cetera. And then from the athletic side, who do faculty want to hear from? Our athletics communications team, our recruiting team, our student athlete development, our wellness and performance team. Who do they want to hear from? So we get a pretty robust list of potential guest speakers to bring into those spaces. And then lastly, challenges. This is an interesting one. This can go in a lot of different directions. And those of you on the call probably know this very well, but attendance, how well are students doing in classroom spaces? How are they doing student conduct, academic code situations or issues? What's AI? What are we seeing in the AI within the classroom spaces? What do our schedules look like? What's the transfer portal look like? What are some of the challenges that really impact our student athlete community, and how can we work to just better understand each other? So that was a little bit about our faculty and head coaches program. The next program we wanted to really emphasize and spend some time talking about is a newer initiative. So Jen and I were tasked with this really division priority. Our VP for athletics and recreation, Dr. Grace Calhoun, came to us and said, hey, we got to figure out ways to get more faculty involved. What can we do to get them? We know that there's this really robust Bear Liaison program. We have that group already attending, and they do a great job of supporting student athletes. But what can we come up with, and what can we brainstorm to really get just more faculty and staff involved in the work that we're doing? And so we put together this faculty and staff engagement strategy. Again, division priority. The intent was to really deepen and further these relationships. The third bullet there was what we brainstormed. It was like, okay, let's provide a really cool, robust, behind the scenes look at the student athlete experience. And I think we were kind of surprised at how much, you think that they're in your spaces a lot, but they're not always in your weight room spaces or, practice room spaces and so on. So as we have given them tours and a behind the scenes look at the different facilities and different things that the student athletes are engaged in, it's been a really cool process to kind of foster that. And that's that last bullet, really foster that shared pride, participation, and support of the work that we're doing. And I'll pass it back to you to share some examples, Jen.
Yeah, sure. So, we also had a strategy to the invitation side of these events. So, as I met with faculty members, I started to keep a list. So, we started with that list and we just did a personal invitation to that list of faculty members. And as I had faculty members saying, "Hey, can you help me proctor an exam?" or "I have this student athlete in your class," I just added them to the list. Um, and then we expanded out to our campus partners. So we work with student support services and student accessibility services and the Sheridan Center and the Curriculum Resource Center and the Career Center. And we did personal invitations to those individuals that we worked with regularly. And then shortly after those personal invitations, we then put the registration out into the daily university announcements. We asked specific teams if they would participate, and we sort of started with the ones that we knew people would want to go to, of course, like football, basketball, but our women's volleyball program is great. Women's ice hockey had a great year this year. Women's lacrosse is off to the races with a great season. And we would have had women's basketball had it not been for the snowstorm. And so what we found was that the coaches were more than willing to work with us. And we worked with our marketing team and the coaching staff to create the details of each of these events. And some of the things I think Sean had mentioned tours. It was really helpful that we just completed an indoor turf project and everybody wanted to see the finished product. So that was an easy tour. We also did tours of the coaches' offices, team rooms, locker facilities. In some cases, the head coach would meet with the group before game time, which sometimes you're not really sure if a coach is up for that, but our coaches were very much up for it. They included them in team huddles, like pre-game huddles for those pre-game speeches. We did high fives out onto the court, through the tunnel onto the field. But the one thing that they all loved was the t-shirt toss. They really loved being a part of the t-shirt toss. But I think the best part of this initiative was the interest that it generated. I received several emails from faculty and staff that said, "I can't participate or register for this event, but what are the future events? Can you please make sure that I'm on the list for these future events?" Um, and then we also had several that asked to be bear liaisons. That was either from, them taking care of and being involved in these events, or they heard from a colleague who went to the event and they want to get involved. So it really started a lot of buzz and talk amongst colleagues to really check it out and talked with either Sean or I to see how they can be involved.
And most of this, right, Jen, like most of this was at no cost. We did
Yeah.
do food. Our last lacrosse game, which we got pretty heavy rain, but we had a great turnout.
Yeah.
We did splurge on like some pizza and drinks and so on. We spent a couple dollars there kind of with catering. But outside of that, most of this on here was very little in the way of costs. We did snacks or treats and so on. But so if that's something that's a concern from a budget perspective, this could be an easy win in terms of getting faculty and staff into your spaces. We're also open for ideas here. This was our
Yeah.
first, it was actually really fun being on the calls because like we would do kind of like bi-weekly planning calls and then it would, it transpired like the actual event would be coming up and we could talk through, yeah, what do we want to do? What's possible in this facility? Can we do a t-shirt toss here? Can we do, what does this look like out on the ice? Can we have our bear liaisons go down or these new faculty come down and go on the ice? And so it was really fun kind of like planning and going through what was possible. And again, that was Jen and I and our marketing team and then our facilities team and just coming up with some really cool, innovative ideas.
Mhm.
And happy to like, I think in terms of the chat drop, and if you have other ideas or things that you're doing, we'd love to learn more from you all too. And as we start to close, we thought we would close with 2 slides before we open it up for questions. We built in some time for Q&A at the end, and we have a question for you all. But this we wanted to just provide a little bit around the outcomes of things that these forging these relationships over the last couple of years has led to some really great opportunities and some great initiatives. And so, Jen, if you want to take this first one and working with Sylvia.
Yeah, so this was my one of my the first professors that I had asked, Professor Sylvia Quo in our econ department. Her husband also is in the econ department and is a bear liaison. That's important context as I tell you this story. So I went to her class because she has a large number of student athletes in her class every term, because econ is the number one concentration amongst our student athletes. And I really liked her. She really just understood student athletes. And I asked her, would you be interested in being a bear liaison? And she put me off. She was like, I don't think so. I don't know that that's for me. I mean, it was like 3 or 4 coffee dates later. And finally, I got her to say, yeah, I think I'll do it. And she's the type of person that if she's going to do it, she is all in. And so the bulk of the student athletes that she was working with were football players. And so I said, let me ask our coach if, he has room for another bear liaison. And our coach is incredibly unique. He is very open to having as many people surrounding his student athletes as possible. So he has never said no to a bear liaison. He welcomed her with open arms. And if you know Coach Perry, he invites you to everything. You get everything. You can go to practice, you can go to film sessions, you can sit down in one-on-one meetings. So she leaned in and she came to Sean and I and she said, I'm actually seeing this fascinating learning process happening when I watch them on the field and I watch them in, film review. It's really interesting that you can tell they are masters at their sport. They're Division I student athletes. So the learning is happening and they're A+ student athletes. They should be A+ students if they just take that learning process and transfer it into the classroom. And so, what that sort of started to snowball into is her doing some research and really specifically wanting to do that research with a football player, just because he would have that background. And so that's what they did. They did research, they held workshops, and I'm going to let Sean talk about what happened from there because while I was involved in it, he actually is part of the product at the end.
Yeah, and yes, thanks, Jen. And I think the one thing to note is like there was this learning transfer process and component happening. And at the same time, Jen and I were doing first year workshop series sessions. So
Mm.
everything from time management to core values to, using your resources on campus to, these different topics first year. I'm sure those of you who have like first year courses and programs can relate. And so we were doing that with our first years. And then she had this idea around like this learning transfer component of like, hey, they're really good at these things. These apply very nicely. What are the behaviors and practices that you can take from one domain and apply them to the next? And so we got to work. This is on the left hand side, the brand new course. So we got to work, Jen, Sylvia, myself, and a few others just planning out. We can continue to do workshops, or we can try to infuse that information in a course. And so we started looking at our different options, what could get done, what did Sylvia's commitment and bandwidth look like there in terms of what she could. And so we were like, great, let's make it come to life. And so last year was the first year we piloted this course. It's called Learning Transfer, Integrating Sports, School, and Life. And it's really just that. It's what are the high performing habits and behaviors that you've found in certain areas of your life and figuring out how do we apply those to other areas. And so her and I are teaching the class this semester. It's been just an awesome experience working with her in this capacity. And it's everything from time management to habits to values to leadership and communication and maximizing your brand experience and so on. And so it's really taking those things that you can do and then applying them. And so it's just been an awesome experience. But I think that's to Jen's point. It's like it's highlighted or emphasized through the work of bringing a bear liaison into our spaces and having really robust conversations around what is happening, what are we observing, and what does this look like in my space, and how can we work together in a more collaborative way.
Mm.
And then the second one is the second one that I'll highlight from an outcome perspective is working with a lot of our faculty over the last couple of years and observing challenges, and one of them has been around students missing classes. So up until this past year at Brown, when a student would miss a class, it was up to, or miss, I'm sorry, miss an exam. When a student needed to miss an exam for a competition, it was up to the faculty members, at the faculty's discretion of like how it would be worked out. And so what we saw last year was a handful of our teams really competing at the NCAA level, winning Ivies, going to NCAAs or getting at large bids. And so when they got to NCAAs, it was still at the discretion of faculty to whether or not they were going to accommodate student athletes. And so it created some challenges, but it also created an opportunity. And so as we had been floating this for years of the potential impact that that could have without having a formal missed exam policy on the books, we could run into challenges. And so working with our faculty athletics rep, our FAR, working with many of our bear liaisons for their input, and then working with our academic community to pass this over the summer that was implemented for fall and beyond, a new missed exam policy that is no longer at the discretion of faculty, but now they have to provide accommodations for our student athletes that need to miss for competitions, which is just a win for student athletes to feel supported in that way.
Mhm.
Jen, did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Good. I think now we built in purposely some time for maybe some Q&A. I know you're all on Zoom. I'm not certain if you're still dialed in here to this session, but just either questions or what ways you engage with faculty and staff, anything you all want to share, any opportunity to learn from each other, we would welcome here. Any questions for us?
Sean, do you want to stop sharing your screen?
Yeah, I can.
Perfect.
Is there?
I think this is a
question.
good setup because I'm glad that we get some opportunity to sort of have some discussion. So we would love questions or comments or ideas for our faculty engagement.
Or yeah, if it's Friday and it's just getting late and it's all good too. Kelsey, I saw you come off. Was there a question or did you want to share something?
Hey.
Oh, hey, Gabe. We'll go Gabe and then Kelsey. Go ahead. Did you have a question?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Sean. This is Ed and Jed. Thanks. So thanks for sharing all that. As I said, like when you mentioned the t-shirt toss, I'm like, oh, that always gets everybody every single time if they want to participate in a giveaway. But I noticed on one of the slides that they said that one of the students was that the student was helping the professor with the like research the learning development space, which is in the learning special space. Love that, want that published, and pretty much want her to put it on a t-shirt, and so I can give it to everybody. But actually, is that formal? Do you know by chance if that will ever formally get published? Because if that's the case, I would love to find out where that is and get a copy of that so I can share that around.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming that at some point she did the literature review with him, so we can ask.
Kelsey?
Yeah, well, thank you all for this presentation. It was really great. So I'm at Temple, and we actually started kind of piloting. We're calling it a guest coaching experience. So we did that this year, and it was really fun. And so I have a comment about that, and then a question about the other another aspect. One thing with men's basketball that the faculty guest coaches kind of liked, and it obviously it's a little bit of an extra lift, and it depends on their schedule, but coming to shoot around like beforehand, and it gave a little bit of space for like the coach to talk to the faculty like in a more, we're not at game time yet, so they're kind of a little more relaxed, and the students were able to come up and say hi as well. So I think that was a good addition, at least for men's basketball with their like how their day is laid out. But yeah, it's been really awesome. Like
I
going
love
through
that. We did. Kelsey, that's a great idea. I love that a lot. And those are the ideas that we're like brainstorming, discussing.
Yeah.
For football, we did something similar where we did like day of a game, right?
Mhm.
Day before a game, rather. Sorry.
Yeah.
We knew that the day of was going to be crazy, and we were like, we can't really do too much. But we were like, oh, what if we did the pregame? And so it was really cool because we walk in and it's like, hey, get in here in this team room of 100 and sit down in the in the main team room. And They were going over special teams. This one does not have a happy ending though. They were going over special teams and kickoff coverage and all the things. And then the next day, I think we were playing Princeton, and they took the opening kickoff back to the house to start the game. And we were like, I'm pretty certain that was the meeting we sat in on.
Oh, no. Because they
It's
can see
not
like
good.
a direct, yeah.
Yes, but it was so fun. And then Coach Perry was like, "Get in my office. Let's chat. Let me share with this group." And so just very
Yeah.
giving with your time. But I think any like signature touch point there is it goes a long way for sure.
Yeah, it really does. My question was specifically for the maybe if you like going through that process of the missed exam policy, um, only through my lens, I guess, not as many issues with exams, but some of our like math classes always having a quiz every week on Friday, and if they, are unlucky and have the Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, and specifically with gymnastics, they're gone lots of Fridays, and had a bit of difficulty with that, especially this semester. So just like brainstorming a little bit of how to go about that so they don't have like zeros.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you want me to
Just
take it? Or you got
yeah,
it?
sure. Yeah. Well, I'll share and then or no, you go, Jen. You go. And then
Okay. So, I think that that's where the relationship building came in, right? So, I think once, and particularly after the policy had changed, right? Because, um, it was real, I mean, for the most part, like Sean said, most of the time the student athletes were just working with their faculty members. But there were some faculty members that didn't know what to do because they weren't sure if there was a policy or not. And so, what I had explained to all of our student athletes is please offer me as a proctor, right? Because you're going to your faculty member and you're saying, um, I'm not going to be here, and can you give me a makeup exam? What that says to a faculty member is I have to find someone to proctor this exam and pay them, and then I have to find a grader for that exam, and now I have to try and find space to reserve for you to take that exam. So I said, you're solving the problem for them. You're basically saying, Jen in athletics is, proctors exams, right? And so a lot of times that did one of two things. The faculty member was like, oh, good, I have a point person. And then we would directly connect, or they would go to their colleagues and say, do you know about this Jen person in athletics? What's the deal with that? And so that's where the bear liaisons came in, right? Where they were really saying, oh, yep, just call Jen, she'll sort through it with you. And so it really was me leaning on the relationships that I already had, or the athlete saying, we do have a point person in athletics that is responsible for supporting us academically, and this is part of what she does.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Kelsey, can I share something with you? Something we had discussed for fall that I'd love to get your input. We have talked about like we've only done really like games or like a pregame with football for the faculty engagement strategy, but we've talked about this idea of doing something around like a day in the life through practices. So they would spend like 10 minutes with field hockey, then they would run out to go with like football, and then they'd go out to men's soccer, women's soccer, so where they kind of get like a again behind the scenes look, but they get a chance to actually like I don't know, it could be like learning how to do something at this space, and then 10 15 minutes
Mhm.
later they're in a different with a different team. We talk just try to mix it up a little bit and continue to create like new and innovative ways to involve them and give them the quote unquote like behind the scenes look at it.
Yeah, no, that's a really cool way to, so this was the first time we're doing the coaching at games.
Mhm.
But previously we've done for several years, maybe not several, a few years, we've done the faculty appreciation practices. And basically we email every professor that, has a student, like a student athlete from a specific sport, and they'll and invite them to a part of a practice. And it's definitely, I think we've been talking about shifting more towards the guest coaching, because the faculty appreciation practices are a pretty heavy lift. I always thought that they were really fun, and it offers definitely a background, like to kind of see the work that's going in, with the students and the practices. Like that's the main feedback that we always get is like, wow, they really have to like they're working and they're getting yelled at a lot and that stuff like that. So, but I really like the idea of kind of bouncing around. So we have like sometimes the timing just doesn't work with like they have class and or things like that. But if it just getting them kind of to see a little bit more is definitely an interesting like kind of approach to that. So I would be interested in that piece
I
too.
like that. Okay, I like that. Yeah, that's a great suggestion too. I like the faculty appreciation practice. I think we would get some
Yeah,
good
I know.
folks to
I
take
wrote
it.
that down.
That's good.
And actually, I will say too, to this concept that we're thinking of, we are in a position where our facilities are very much like all contained in the same area for the most part. So it is easy to go from one practice to the next. We will run into that they don't all practice at the same time, but maybe for like one specific day, we can work with them to see if, they can align somewhat. So.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for that, Kelsey. Other questions? Thank you for that note, Natasha. That's sweet. I think you're spot on too there, Natasha. I think that's a big. I see your comment in the chat there. I think that's you're spot on. And I think that's also like Kelsey, to your point, it's like bringing them into the spaces to see how involved it truly is, how much time and energy and the dedication.
Mm.
True.
Mm.
Questions. So I want to just share. This was our last slide. Just to make sure you all have our. Can you all see that? Okay.
Mm.
Is that populating? Okay. Okay. Just our contact information. It has our titles and our emails. We're more than happy. Would love to partner with you or brainstorm or just think through, your strategy and things that you're thinking about on your campuses. But love to be a thought partner with you. Reach out anytime. It's our emails, and yeah, really appreciate you hopping on the session today.
I appreciate it, guys. If anybody has any questions, you've got their contact information right here. You can email them. I know they would be able to love to hear from you and help you out. And I appreciate everyone coming to this session. And
Thanks, Josh.
I guess we'll go ahead and end it. And appreciate it, guys.
Thanks,
Everyone.
everybody.
Have a good weekend.
You too.